Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. This was our video over on EE Arts, talking about an astrological look at the future. It's definitely interesting, and this was our exclusive that we did yesterday on Patreon. Message from the guides about the financial system of the future. Where are we heading? Well, it's where we've been in the past. Is cycles repeat themselves, but not exactly the same.
Not exactly the same, but here we go again.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of things we simply cannot discuss on YouTube.
No, we can't.
There's tons, because we will not have a YouTube channel. And so, I mean, we've already been ostracized to such a huge degree on YouTube that we're barely clinging on to life. So, as far as YouTube goes, please do come and check us out over on Patreon if you're so inclined. Meanwhile, here we go. We have a Hudson River helicopter crash. A Bell helicopter crashed into the Hudson River on Thursday afternoon, shortly after 3 o'clock Eastern Time, near West Side Highway and Spring Street, close to the Jersey City side of the river. 6 people reportedly deceased in the crash. Some of them were people that were apparently vacationing from Spain and wanted to take a 15-minute sightseeing trip via helicopter and looking at Manhattan. It went straight down. In fact, it looks as though here you see a rotor blade appears to be completely detached. Very, very sad situation. What is going on with all the helicopter and plane crashes and plane incidents? So it was carrying a pilot, 2 adults, 3 kids. Family members were tourists from Spain. No names have been given yet. Be interesting to see what business they were in. That's something I'm just curious about when we again pray for them and their families. Meanwhile, 2 American Airlines planes just clipped wings at Reagan National Airport again, with several congressmen on board. What is going on? Is this some sort of attack?
Well, you and I both picked up the same information at the same time when we saw this. We were thinking there's some kind of scrambling in the electronics. It could even be some kind of controlling, because there's checks and more checks and rechecks. There's plenty of room to not make a mistake. So this all had to have almost been deliberate.
You see the comment down here. It's way more than that. It's not even involving incompetence. I don't think it's the case. I don't think it's that the person's drunk, that's supposed to be monitoring this. No, I think there's technology involved, as there is in so many things in life. Here you have 47 pulling security clearance for ex-CISA Director Chris Krebs, orders investigation into censorship. Where are we going to be heading in everything that happened in the previous 4 years, targeting the current administration and the previous administration, is all going to come to light. It's just the pendulum. And if you've been following us for 8 years, we always say that there's one system at play here. There's just one system. It does fight amongst itself, and it also literally creates the conditions to battle with itself with complete purpose and intention of, again, just simply sowing division. So you think it's just a coincidence, that we've gone from, each presidency to the next, with Obama and the whole, where's the birth certificate? What's your real name? How's Big Mike? In going into the first Trump, and then going all the way over the other side again to Biden-Harris, to the senile old guy that can't keep track of anything, to this is completely purposeful. In case somebody didn't catch that yet, it's all an act, and this is why we're ostracized, because there are people that believe this is real. it is real in the sense that with these wars and everything, people really do lose their lives. Yeah, they play, they play chess, they play Risk, so to speak, with real lives. This is what the system does. It divides us by religion. It divides us by politics, and it uses anything in its power to keep us divided. Here you have. I don't like saying his name. I don't like even naming the country, really, because the negative energy that comes out is just beyond description. So we tend to avoid this again because personal attacks, literally personal attacks, aggressive attacks. No, but at the same time, just be aware that the potential for that war to start over Iran's nuclear capabilities, which again, in my mind, it's just another tool. It's just another thing that they're using on why they're going to start the war, because they're completely intent on starting the war because this is one of the last cards that the control system has. It really is. They have to use this to divert attention. And again, people will really die in these wars. They don't care. Neither side, really. That's the thing to recognize, because there's nobody in power that's not empowered by the will of the control system. And that's something that many people are waking up to now. Those with a 3-digit IQ understand that.
Well, it's a big mess is what we have.
It is a big mess. And again, there's a lot of nuclear weapons behind this person, or at least we should say there's a lot of weapons and technology, some of which there was a statement made by this person that they have technology that guarantees the survival of their state no matter what happens. This is because they have technology that is not of Homo sapiens invention. And just simple words, they're backed by non-human beings that are truly demonic in nature and extraterrestrial in origin.
And they play people like puppets.
They do, and people still fall for it. It's when we will say, no, we're not going to fight each other, that things can change. I've never seen such a mass sell-off of U.S. assets. The U.S. dollar, bonds, and stocks are all getting killed. I can't remember when the dollar lost 3.5% against the Swiss franc in one day. America's ride on the global gravy train is about to come to a screeching halt. Buckle up. Yeah, again, I do think it's more towards late summer, probably fall, that we see it all really, kick off. So there's a little period of time to get ready. It's still going to be very tumultuous. I, again, don't think there's been as challenging of year that we have seen yet, even 2020 compared to this year. This year's going to be very, very challenging. And here you have the Chinese Foreign Ministry office in Hong Kong. We must solemnly tell the U.S. that a tariff-wielding barbarian who attempts to force countries to call and beg for mercy can never expect that call from China. The call is not coming. So, this comes on the heels of this statement that perhaps Trump should raise tariffs to 1,000%. At some point they just shut everything off. They no longer trade with each other. They go on to a direct war footing. This is where it's obviously heading towards. Now, meanwhile, the plan to shift all the manufacturing over to China is one that's existed for at least as old as I am. That's the bottom line. When the U.S. was going to its ascendancy with the petrodollar, already they knew what the next stage in this was. And if you haven't noticed, they constantly move the center point of the control system a little bit west. And it went again from Sumeria to Greece, Rome, to the Holy Roman Empire, to the British Empire, on which the sun never sleeps, so to speak. And still, if you look at crown lands in Canada and in Australia and in New Zealand, over 90% of that land is technically owned by the crown. They'll say, well, it's really just, That's just terminology. It's really the public's. Oh, really? What can the public really do with it? Nothing. That is not what the system tells you that you can do with it. So again, this is the system doing what it's doing. And right now it's shifting power to China. And that plan's been in place, again, for over 50 years. It's actually, if you look at some sources, it might have been in play for 150 years. 150 years. So it's not knowing what comes next. Everybody should know what comes next if we really paid attention.
I think it's a matter of watching things change and evolve, and things usually don't come to such a sudden halt, and they don't announce, okay, this is what we're doing, but they do these baby steps, and this frog in boiling water thing keeps coming up, where pretty soon all the things have happened and it's too late to get out of it. And that's what's going on right now. I think they've kind of already done their things. Everyone is jockeying for their position. They've pretty much found it, and we're usually the ones who find out last.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back again. There's a reason why you'll see news articles talking about low IQs. Yeah. It's because of the fluoride. It's because of the food. It's because of that's what they've been feeding us purposely, and it's so people won't understand the bigger picture. And yet there is a caveat to all this, and that is free will, which does exist, and also the fact that nature, the fact that we're out of the dark age now, nature in the very light of the sun is awakening our DNA, which your DNA can be reprogrammed. This is something to realize. You can reprogram your DNA. You can make healthy choices for yourself. You can absolutely pick up IQ points. You can become wiser. It's just a matter of saying, I'm not going to consume these things, certain foods, certain substances that are mind-altering, and lowering your frequency, lowering your vibrations. You can become healthy because you can only go up so high, in a sense, as far as your sharpness mentally, intellectually, with your overall health too. And that's something also. We're not a very healthy society, completely intentional, because that will keep us, from achieving our best and also being our sharpest. This is really, really a very, very long-term play that has been planned for, again, generations in advance.
Well, yeah, they've been doing it a long time, which makes it very, very difficult if you are one who is trying to help your own lineage. Usually you've inherited so many things from your parents and your parents' grandparents and so on and so on. It takes a while, and it takes a minute to recalibrate that energy body, but it is doable. You may have to pull in, several different types of healing modalities, but through sound and through energy and through hard work and commitment, you can bring yourself back to, the fullness and the greatness of your ancestors before the trauma started.
So here we have the Dow's down 2.5% for the day. But, when you look at the bigger picture, as far as looking at where it's been in a year's time, it's still basically gained. So, you have to look at it that way. And then 5-year, it's way up for a 5-year. So what they're doing is they're trying to get everybody scared. They're trying to get everybody irritated. Will they pull this plug? I think they will. Absolutely. And you watch the big dogs, or the whales, to coin a term that they use over in certain markets. What are the whales doing? Well, a lot of the whales are getting out of stocks. Some of them are going into alternatives. Many are buying precious metals, and others, invest in commodities. But what can the average person do? Again, do your best to be as self-supportive as possible. When you look at the United States here, this is imports. The U.S. imports way more than anybody else. The European Union is second, and this is in millions. So we're talking trillions of dollars, 3.3 and then the EU 2.7, China 2.7. When you look at as far as who exports the most, it's China by a mile again, 3.3 again in trillions, to the U.S. at 2 trillion. So obviously the U.S. has a huge trade deficit. It's sitting right there in front of you. It's a more than 50% trade deficit. So something has to change, because when you look at the biggest debtor nation, we're the worst by far, followed by the EU. So can this go on forever? Well, it's a bubble that's just, it hasn't, the fact that it hasn't popped is only because they haven't been ready for it to pop. So, thinking that the tariffs are wrong and it's stupid, or necessarily thinking that tariffs are going to solve all our problems, both would be a little naive. When you look at what's trying to be done, obviously, trying to bring the trade imbalance into balance would be just basic. At the same time, the timing of it all is very strategic, because we can see how this is again leading to a very, very hot war involving China. And China is the biggest military in the world. It's the largest military, and India is the only one that could field about the same amount of people. When you combine China's vast armies with Russia's technology, and China has technology too, then you definitely have a recipe going up against the U.S. and NATO for disaster. Yet at the same time, what's starting to happen? Well, it looks like the EU is opening up the trade door to China, but when you look at it, again, that's part of what's been planned. I think, again, there is this caveat that most won't understand. We don't fully understand it ourselves, and it has to do with the higher self, because, again, you already are a eternal being having a temporary experience, a very, very small little experience in the span of the many lifetimes that we have here on Earth, as whatever you view as you, and all the things that define you in this particular incarnation. It's a very short temporary experience, but it's a learning experience. So all this is something that we should always keep in the forefront of our mind, because this is something we're going through for expansion and growth. And I know that sounds hard to understand, but truly, this is all in the Santana Dharma, in yoga. It's all very well understood. The famous battle, the Kurukshetra War, that's the center point of the Bhagavad Gita, which really marked the beginning of the Dark Kali Yuga. One of the participants in the war is fighting against cousins and family members, and it's something that weighs heavy on him, and he's told by a divine being that, well, it's your destiny. You came here to fight this battle and to resist the downward slide into the Kali Yuga, even though it's inevitable. We are going to slide into a Kali Yuga, into a dark age, and we did. After the end of that war, it was right upon us, and that dark age has been one in which humanity has been controlled by an extraterrestrial, interdimensional group of beings, and they have given us everything that we take as today's societal, economic, geopolitical system.
When I have trouble seeing the bigger picture, and when we're coming into this world and hopping in our meat suits, and you kind of learn after a while that we're not able to see the bigger picture. And I think of a child, when a child comes up to something and it's just too overwhelming, they cover their little eyes and maybe they just look out of a sliver between their fingers. They just see that little teeny tiny bit of information because they're overwhelmed with, say they walk up to a big ship. It's just too big. They cannot take it all in. That's kind of what we're like. We are in these meat suits and we can only see a tiny sliver of information because the rest of it is going to be extremely overwhelming, and we're not quite ready to go there yet.
I like this. Let's be friends. Hey, we're not the same species, but you know what? You're big. I'm little, but let's be friends. We can all get along. And we absolutely could. There's no reason for a WW3. There's no reason for any of these conflicts, except for the fact that it suits the system. It helps the system maintain control and power. But they're going to lose control and power. So the more we resist the hatred, and the more we understand that our friends, family members that didn't understand some things, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, what was happening, perhaps they made some decisions they wish they didn't. Again, they were just simply trusting and placing trust where it obviously showed that it was not a good place to place your trust. Again, there's a reason why there have been so many control systems that have apparently failed humans. It's because they were never intended to support humans in the first place. They were intended to create division and to, again, pit us against each other. So unknowingly, we would give power to that system and allow them to keep manipulating and controlling us. But too many people are waking up. And so, again, it's just simply our only duty as people that have woke up to what's going on is to help others awaken.
Indeed.
And as always, keep your frequency high. So, again, mind, body, breath practice, which is something we do every single day. Every single day without fail. We wouldn't dare not do it because, again, in this world, it is what keeps you above the fray at least as much as possible while we are in, as Cindy said, these meat suits.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.